It's 6:32, so we're going to start the meeting. Well, that's a decent. Once Brett gets us started, now we're going to call to the call.
It was funny.
Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the South Mansfield Unified Union School Board meeting. Today is Monday, April 14th at 6:30 p.m. and we are at Hamels Hump Middle School. I'm going to run through the agenda. If we have any changes, modifications, we can do that first. And then we'll get on with the rest of it. So we always start with, well, we don't always start. We often start with community comments. That's our first agenda item. We have a principal report from Gretchen Muller, principal here at Hamels Hump. We have a monitoring report. First one we're going to do after our PG training. We'll see how we do with that. A Title VI update. All of that still ongoing, kind of, sort of. Mostly it's done. Capital facility project planning updates. Board committee discussion, making sure everybody is on the committees plural that they want to be on. Superintendent report, approving our minutes. We're only going to do on the committee reports legislative and VSBA because the other committees are pretty much just getting kicked off after our new changeover. And if there's any other business, we'll do that at the end. Changes, modifications, updates to the agenda. We don't have it on here, but Pat, would you do a roll call for us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, excellent. Hi, Tara Anderson.
Present.
Kevin Campbell.
Online.
Present.
Heather Chadwick.
Present.
Alison Conant.
Here.
Gail Conley.
Present.
Stephen Diglio.
Steve.
Edie Graining.
I'm here.
James Granzow.
On his way.
Susan Lilly.
Here.
Sandra Limoges.
Here.
Kyle Magida.
Here.
Ethan
Here.
Maurer.
I'm here too.
Stuart Margeau.
He won't be here tonight.
Katie Nelson.
Here.
Lisa Pollock.
Present.
And student reps, we have Abby O'Malley
Here.
and Eli Wimet.
Here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Community comments. I don't see anyone in the room with us. Anybody remote who has comments for us? Anything to report? Okay, I'm not seeing any. If someone joins late, we'll check in with the board if they have a comment that they want to share with us. Gretchen, the floor is yours.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Everyone has a copy of the report I wrote, right? So, okay, yes. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that we're, as a school, really focusing on and really proud of. Last year with our leadership, our school leadership team, or guiding coalition, we led, it was a year and a half really leading our whole staff through different protocols and processes to redo our vision, mission statements, as well as our collective commitments. And it was a really positive experience for everyone in getting their input. And so we finalized those three components, and we really have been grounding all of our work in the vision and mission, and certainly living by the collective commitments or our value statements that we developed as a whole staff. We try to highlight one collective commitment each week that we focus on. And overall, this year, we've really been focusing on our commitment of valuing relationships and being intentional about making time to build those relationships and maintaining them. So we've done that a few different ways, and that really applies. We were really clear that our collective commitments don't just apply to students, they apply to all of the adults working together. So with our relationship value statement, we as a school have been working towards that through our advisory program, as well as creating what are called COPs, or community of practices, for all of the adults. So we are all in mixed groups, meaning teachers who teach different subject areas, different grade levels, support staff, all staff are part of these small community of practice groups. So it's sort of like mini advisories for our adults. And we use most of our faculty meeting time to meet in our small groups to really go through what I talked about in here about a holistic restorative approach. So really being intentional about slowing down and checking in with each other, making those intentional connections, building those relationships, exploring specific topics, and then using that time to then reflect and set intentions or goals for ourselves. So we've been really proud of that work. A lot of that has been led by our ABAR group, our anti-bias, anti-racist work group. That's one of many faculty work groups that we've developed. So we have our ABAR group, our guiding coalition or leadership group. We also have a very active safety team, advisory team, and a school culture and sunshine group. And so we also set time for all of our work groups to meet to focus on different aspects. So ABAR has really been working with our community of practice. Our advisory group needs to create different plans that we follow, and all of those plans were developed by the whole entire staff. So for example, Wednesday we have advisory, and our focus will be on stereotyping. So we pick different topics that we can talk about at all grade levels 5 through 8. We are also really proud of what our students are doing every day, not only academically, but with all the other opportunities that are presented to them. So we have a lot of after-school clubs that we offer, and we're very grateful that we have a lot of staff that you're a student and they go up and say, would you do a bookbinding club? And we find someone and they do it, which is amazing. We have parents who volunteer as well. So we offer 3 different club sessions. And we have it's a similar trend that I put in as last year, that almost 70% of our kids will participate in one or more after school clubs. So we really are happy and contribute that to the school culture that we created here, that kids really want to stay here and be with peers and interacting with adults that was something that they have in common with each other. The same for athletics. Mainly it's for 7th and 8th grade students, but sometimes we need more students to have our teams. And so we reach out to 6th grade students, and about half of our student population participates in athletic teams. We also this year started another student group. They're our kindness ambassadors. We've always had a motto here of kindness matters, and you'll see blue hearts all around that literally say kindness matters. And so we took it to the next level and really wanted to highlight acts of kindness each week. So we have 8th graders who are part of the kindness ambassador group. They do morning announcements. They highlight a student from each grade level who has demonstrated kindness to their peers and to the school community. And so we continue to celebrate that. And the 8th grade students just are taking the lead on that, which is which is fantastic. And, you know, we are, for all of us, an aspiration is to continue to get more student voice, more students involved in different aspects of our school. And now that our 7th grade and 8th grade teams are all 4-person teams, they see each other all the time. And so for advisory, a goal of mine, I would love to see our 8th graders and maybe 7th graders be mentors to our younger advisories and have them help, you know, teach the lesson on stereotyping as opposed to it all being separate grade levels. That's my summary of my report, but if anyone has questions or wants me to expand on anything, I'm happy to do that.
And this is really a question in light of all the conversations at the State House and really clarifying. The full-time equivalent education support personnel, is that like custodians and other kitchen staff, or is that just like educators? And
that number is related to all of our individual assistants or specialized assistants.
not necessarily like facilities and stuff like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Other questions?
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate your focus. To me, that's like the most important aspect of coming together as a school, is everyone experiencing a sense of belonging and community. And so I thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, keep working on it.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, you know, you said that you continue to focus on more student voice and getting maybe that 30% of students that are not doing prompts. What do you see what's your plan for moving forward with that and getting more student voice and more students involved?
That's a great question. I think some of the clubs that we offer provide opportunities for kids who aren't involved in other things to have their voice heard there. I think if we could get some more mentoring opportunities between the younger grades and the 7th and 8th grade students, I think that would be helpful. I would love to have, it's hard with our meeting schedule and student schedules, but I would love to have a couple students represented on our school leadership or guided coalition team to come in at certain points and be able to contribute and give some more insight on their experiences at Camel Something and what ideas they have.
That's great. And do you see any way for the board to help you with any of this?
That's a good question. I will think about that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I feel like someone always asks this, but I was curious about any challenges that you may be experiencing since we've progressed pretty far past COVID, and I know that there are still lingering effects from that, but some of the greatest challenges that you may be feeling within the school.
I think there are always hurdles that we have to figure out. I think we're still seeing some academic skills that aren't where we would expect them to be. And so I know as we plan for the incoming 5th grade class and working with our current students here, there's, to me, based on what I'm hearing about students coming in and what I'm already seeing, there's always a need for intervention. And so students who don't meet the criteria or need specialized instruction through an IEP or 504, they do need that more intensive level intervention and not having enough interventionists, people, plus time, and building that into the schedule is really hard. We were able to do that at the 5th and 6th grade level this year. So we have intervention blocks that are different at the 5th grade level per team and the same for 6th grade, which is helpful. And it's still not enough. I think that right now is a tricky piece is the intervention and providing that support for students.
And you're feeling like primarily academically, or are you still feeling like needing support with the social emotional learning?
Definitely academically. I think social and emotional piece is there and present. Our guidance counselors are amazing and do incredible work through the guidance classes. Open guidance, the way we have it set up, allows them to do a lot of check-ins, lunch bunches. We do have some therapists that come into the school to meet with students so that families don't have to try to schedule picking kids up and bringing them back, or, the telehealth piece. There's always a need for more. We actually are actively looking for another person that can come in and meet with students. I think, that additional support academically and social emotional parts are, there's always that need, feeling like that the social emotional piece has to come first. Kids have to feel comfortable and safe and before they can start accessing their education. So that is a part of it for sure.
I just thought this was a good time to do a PSA for the PTA
Mm-hmm.
because so many people watch these. So we're without a PTA here at Campbelltown Middle School, so everybody's super motivated to help support in that way. I think it would be really beneficial to help support your goals.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. Yeah, we would love to have additional family involvement. We're not looking for it to be, all the time, but there's, anything that can help support students. I think also teachers as well. Part of our community of practice conversations have been around the focus of capacity, skill, and motivation. And if one of those is out of balance with the other person who's been working with us in professional development has talked about ballast. And as soon as one gets, not even with the others, the boat starts to tip. And so that's another piece is we're also trying to be really intentional about not only the social emotional support for students, but also the adults in the school and making sure that they have the capacity and the motivation to they all have incredible skills and trying to keep that balance between the other two pieces.
I'm curious if the staff here and the staff at Browns River do professional development together, if it's the right, the right amount, more or less, like how that works.
It's a great question. We do have our instructional coaches lead professional development for our early release Wednesdays. And then we rotate, so every other Monday. So last Monday was scheduled for a faculty meeting here. Today was professional development, just focused on science and social studies. So we alternate every other Monday and then the early release Wednesdays. I think my biggest push that I've had since I've been a part of the district is it's amazing that we have instructional coaches and that they are very supportive of our teachers. And there's still some room for growth in providing professional development for all of our teachers. Our instructional coaches are for math, ELA, science, and social studies. But we have world language teachers and exploratory teachers, and they're not part of that. They still have professional development time, and they can, get, like, our school counselors here can get together with the school counselors at Browns River and lead their own professional development. And I think there's also room for providing some more support to them when we do get time for teachers to work with each other and collaborate between the two middle schools for early release Wednesdays, the Mondays.
Other questions for Gretchen? Yes, Kevin.
Hey, that worked. Thanks, Gretchen. More of a comment, and it might be to John rather than you, Gretchen, but I think it's really helpful to have a parent organization at a school for the school board to kind of have as a linkage. Is this something that we can almost require? I know it takes participation, but it's a big deal for me to hear that one of our two middle schools, we don't have parent and caregiver advocacy or support or any real anything there,
We should have a parent-teacher organization in every school, and we do in all the schools but Camel's Hump right now. And I know Gretchen and I have talked about it and we've been trying to get that off the ground. But it probably need a little more focus and intentionality.
I will offer our Camel's Hump parents are amazing, and they're very involved, and they do help out a lot. There's someone two seats for me. I mean, we were so appreciative of you coming in and volunteering and doing basketball. I mean, there's a lot of support in different ways, and Teacher Appreciation Week, everyone is here to help. And so I don't want Camel's Hump families to get a bad rap. They are amazing, and they are very, very supportive of the school and very supportive of teachers and students. There just isn't something that is, meets monthly, for example, or has other pieces that they're organizing. I think what we talked about on the tour and thinking about how to support families in need, for example, and some other aspects of supporting the school community, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, as a follow-up, I would just encourage you to have some kind of responsibility for that organization, so that they do have a structure and a purpose. Because when times are good, not necessarily a need, but when there is something that's not going well, needs attention, having that organization in place can help us send messages and get information and that kind of thing. So it's a good thing to have in general, but I get the point that you can obviously operate great without one like you're doing, but good to have when you need it.
And I think the plan is to have one. So I just want to be clear.
Is there potential outreach that could be done to the theater parents in the theater schools who are aging into Camel's Hump?
I did share, we have a family that I met with to talk about transition into 5th grade. And so there are a couple families who are already currently active with their parent group and are interested in helping as their kids transition to Camel's Hump. So
Great. We look forward to a report next year that there is one, and that
I think it's pretty helpful that RES is a huge parent involvement, and those kids are on, like you were just saying.
Yeah.
And I think it's historic. Can you remind me, in your weekly newsletter, is there a part that says anything about volunteer opportunities?
there
for parents because I only find out like, you know, from my classroom teachers that are like, we need field trip help and that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main place where we're asking for volunteer help. I mean, in the newsletter, there was how the process you have to go through to become a volunteer. That was what was in the newsletter. But we haven't put out, teams haven't asked for additional volunteer support other than the trips. Gotcha.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you hosting us here tonight. You do not have to stay. We can clean up after ourselves.
Thank you.
But you're more than welcome to stay.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much. 2.4 District Leadership Succession Monitoring Report.
Okay, that's me. This is one of our executive limitations, and it is to set the district up in the event that the superintendent cannot, isn't available. They're either sick or they're incapacitated or they leave, which can happen and has happened in Vermont. Not here in the last several years, but it can happen and it does happen. So making sure there's systems and structures and people who have the right credentials and the right training that could step in if we needed them to. And this is a pretty important policy because in policy governance, the superintendent is really your only employee. And that I'm the direct conduit to you and to the district. So this is, it's very important that we have people and a group of people that could take over if the superintendent just, is not there. So we revised this policy a bit too in 2022. We spent some time on this policy and talking about with the committee for new folks. We have an ad hoc committee. I don't want to assume anything. So we had an ad hoc committee who met for probably around 17 or 18 months pretty regularly. And we went through every single solitary policy governance policy. And we had some goals that we had set out early on that went through the board. And we focused on what those priorities and goals were. And we changed some of the language. We also talked about how that they wanted the monitoring reports. And so what you see here is what we came up with, that we would, in one section, we would have a summary, which is essentially the reasonable interpretation. And then along with that evidence that you're meeting the intention and the parts of the policy that are most important. So what you see here is the report that I prepared, and I would say it's pretty in-depth. I try to list a lot of evidence in there that shows that we're ready. And I won't read it, but I do want to do a quick overview with you. In the first section, it essentially it says to make sure there's at least 2 executives that could, either together or individually, they would be able to step in and be superintendent. So there are a couple of things that have happened over the last 5 years that I think demonstrate a commitment to being prepared and also, the things that we've tried to do to cultivate these people and, our administration. So Andrew is, we changed that position a few years back from curriculum director to assistant superintendent. And during that period of time, Andrew has been able to get a level 2 endorsement. So he has the credentials and the training, officially by the state of Vermont to step in and make decisions and do some of the things and do the essential things and the legal pieces that we need superintendents to do. He's also been taken on a supervision and evaluation role for some of our administrators. So that, again, to try to give some Andrew or whoever is in that role the experience to be able to supervise people and evaluate them effectively. And so he has taken on that responsibility as well. He's a liaison with the committees. Sometimes he fills in, but for our community engagement committee, he is the liaison from central office. So again, building relationships, getting to know people on the board, making those connections, and being responsible to carry out follow-up from the meetings. He's also filled in for some of our meetings here when I'm not available. And sometimes that's just because, I'm not available, but a lot of times it has been intentional. Again, to try to give someone the responsibility and the experience to be able to offer monitoring reports, to be able to talk really clearly and effectively about the budget. He also is a member of the Vermont Superintendents Association. That's relatively new over the last 2 years. And so he has that support, which is, if you don't know, I would say it's significant. There's a lot of collegiality and training that goes along with that. He meets regularly with our principals and other administrators. He helps facilitate our admin meetings as well, and our central office operation teams. He's also involved in those meetings and getting that experience. And again, beginning to understand what our Director of Finance and Operations is doing and what Rebecca, our HR Director, is doing, so that you have a working knowledge around what are some of the most important things. So I feel like we, and I say we because I'm really working with Edie on trying to give somebody in that role the opportunities to get the experience they need to be effective. And then there's Rebecca, who's been here for 9 years. She helped build the systems that we have in place and has been integral in really continuous improvement, I would say, in the district. She works with our negotiation committee. She works on the budget with Nicole and myself. She meets monthly with all the directors and with our principals to talk about HR issues and personnel and wellness. How can we best support people? What do we need? Are there things that we need to address? And I would say really Rebecca has taken over as the main liaison for the HR committee from me, and more responsibility over time. And she's part of there's an organization of educational HR directors, and they meet regularly and they problem solve together. And they talk about what, professional development they need collectively to be most effective and best support schools, because it is a very specific HR responsibility compared to a big corporation. So I think you have two people that in the event I am not available, or John, who could take over, and they would I feel would do a good job, and they would be able to continue to focus on the priorities of the district and stay within the policy governance framework. The other thing I didn't mention is Andrew took the PG training and has been pretty involved in the trainings that we've had with the board. So he's gotten much more familiar with policy governance over the last 3 years, and particularly the last 2. I'll stop there because that's a lot. And just, I would say that I'm very confident that not only Rebecca and Andrew, but Jen Cote, who's relatively new, but has really shown a great deal of professionalism and problem-solving skills as a new special services director. And Nicole, who's been with us for 3 or 4 years, who's, I think, exceptional. You have a very strong team at central office right now that can, one, help the new superintendent, and also if, if they need to be out for a long period of time or a short period of time, we're not going to lose ground. So.
Can I get a motion to accept the 2.4 monitoring report?
Approved.
Thanks, Gail. Thanks, Heather, for seconding. Any discussion? Kevin?
Yeah, go figure. There's always something. Have to.
I expect that we will have discussion on this. It's a good thing.
My comments are for John. Sorry, this doesn't get old, but it could be either one of you. But especially when it comes to organizational continuity here, it's very timely to have this report because shifting from one to the other. But the way in which you presented it, John, it sounds like we have multiple people who are well aware of our procedures, ways of working, accreditation, knowledge, and all of that. But when the time comes and your position is not available, so John's not available to take the helm, who's in charge? Like, do we have a written or unwritten expectation for who will do what, so that we don't have to take time to figure that out?
Well, we have an organizational chart, and the other assistant superintendent would take over as the superintendent.
And is that like written anywhere? I mean, just let's just say it was the curriculum developer, the former role, right? So we had a couple of people who are kind of in the director position, and it's not obvious. Do we have that? Should we have that clarified so everybody knows?
I'm not sure I understand.
I don't know that we need to do a hypothetical when we have an assistant
Sorry.
superintendent. I appreciate the question, but
I see what Kevin's saying. Is like it says Andrew, but if 8 months from now Andrew isn't working for us anymore and a better opportunity arises, it just says Andrew. It doesn't say this position does this and this position does that. I think that's what it's saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's another, there's all kinds of scenarios, but let's say both positions, are not available. I just feel like there's a small step that you could do to make it very clear that the succession of command is here, here, and here, so that there's like no question. Or it could be, look, it's some of the responsibilities are going to be divided up. Like that might also be something that would be the appropriate thing to do. Or it could be, you know what, we're going to call the board chair and we'll assess the situation at that time. I just feel like there's something missing there. I may not be articulating it perfectly, but at this point we have at least 2 people who are capable of doing the work, plus more, and it's at least. But I just don't know, should something happen, is everything going to kick into place automatically?
It should. I mean, I think when looking at and I probably I could have, but I didn't think of it attached to the organizational chart. It really is, the superintendent, then the assistant superintendent, and then other folks. But I think it's not a bad idea to try to codify that in writing in the event that I think it's understood, but I don't know if it's written down anywhere.
it's almost like, do we need a formal emergency plan, right? If we were to need that. And I think that's a fair question. I'm not, because we have an assistant superintendent today who is qualified, it feels less important because John has actually gone on vacation. Thank you, John, and left Andrew in charge. More than once, right? Like that's a, I feel like we've more than once ever, more than once ever. Maybe just twice, but no, more than twice.
Well, I understand what you're saying. I really focused on, are we ready now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we are, I'm very confident of that, but I hear what Kevin is saying. It might be good to really codify, like when I leave, if I'm out, I say, here's who's in charge. Boom, boom, boom. So
Yeah.
in the event that somebody couldn't get a hold of Andrew, it would go to generally Rebecca. And if Rebecca wasn't available, it would go to Nicole. And if Nicole wasn't available, it would go to Jen. That's kind of, Jen, okay, that's, we've set it up.
Yeah, I'll just, to close it out, like, I think when you have a known absence, that's an easy one to handle. When it's an unexpected absence, when there's no handoff, that's when we truly test the process. And so maybe in addition to, or rather than a documented, who's who, maybe you practice you do a exercise every so often that says, okay, this just happened. How would we react? Right. And just kind of walk it through. Just say like, who's gonna cancel school when John's snowed in and nobody can call him, right? Because his power's out and can't get out of his house and all of that. Some scenarios to flesh it out.
That's good feedback. Thank you.
Yep.
Katie?
Sure, I was just kind of along those same lines. Now that I feel really great about all of the things that Andrew has accomplished over the past couple of years to be prepared for that kind of situation. But should Andrew not be here, do we want to create some kind of list or protocol for who the second in command, what the expectation of that person would be? Like, they would have their level 2, they would be regularly attending the VSA meetings, that kind of thing. I think it's so great that that's what he's doing. So I sort of like what Kevin was saying, almost like a description for posterity to know that that's what an expectation would be of the person who is in that position. I don't know if that's necessary. I'm just thinking of a different way of organizing the role.
That is in the assistant superintendent job description.
Right. Okay, great.
But we just want to be prepared, and I appreciate the feedback.
I guess my comment would just be like, if we have an organizational flow chart, like, shouldn't that be detailed enough that all of this stuff would be then obsolete? Or am I just understanding it wrong?
I tried to provide evidence so that you would feel like we are actually meeting the policy.
Yeah.
That the people that are in the spaces now have had the experience and the training to be able to do work.
Oh, no, I know that, but like all the comments that have been made, I feel like if we have an organizational flow chart that's completely inaccurate and detailed, I feel like all this other stuff is just a little bit over the top or not necessarily needed.
But that's what like the monitoring piece is though, like he's reporting on how he's done it. So it's like he's got to show proof.
No, I know, I get the whole
Yeah.
sort, but like
Yeah.
the comments that people are making on like, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or what about this? What happens in this scenario? But the flow chart of who's supposed to do what when, if that's detailed enough, I feel like everything everyone's commented on is kind of moot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you're agreeing that probably just having the org chart in here as
Yeah.
another piece of data would
Yeah.
be enough to cover it.
Does the org chart reference titles or names?
Titles.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't choose mine after that question.
Kyle.
So again, this is not having historical context here. Sounds like Andrew was curriculum director, became assistant superintendent. Is it then possible that there may not be an assistant superintendent? Was there assistant superintendent before Andrew, or did he start that role here?
We had one before. I was one. Jen Botsadorn was one. Warren Wooden was one.
I guess, is there always one or is it?
No, we changed it to curriculum director. Years back. And then we really, the board and feedback from people, that we really needed to be prepared in the event that, superintendent wasn't available, particularly under the policy governance framework.
Yeah, I'd say just my experience of that conversation was, asking John to develop a bench, I think was kind of the phrasing that I kept hearing, and that, whether it was Andrew or somebody else, I'm appreciative of John, and I think John will also be appreciative of the bench that you've developed, because I think it is important to have that succession. And, as the best school district in the state, I think it's also like a continuous process, right? Maybe now is an opportunity for the district to push that even further down. Say, right, we've got the central office sort of leadership piece in place, but we want to keep growing that field because, positions change, people change, and keeping your bench.
Which is where I was going to go and saying how much I appreciated the resources at the end of the report showing how we're working to deepen the bench throughout the district and not just in the administrative office. So thanks for doing all of that.
Good work.
Thanks for segueing.
And I appreciate the feedback. I'm glad Dawn is here to hear, that we just have to make sure, I agree with Kevin, that people know, they do right now, but I don't want to assume that's going to be that way next year or the year after. That if I'm out, the assistant superintendent takes charge and fills the role of the superintendent until they're back. And I will say again, we're prepared. I could be out for the rest of the year. Don't plan on it. But my throat is really hurting.
Other questions or comments on the 2.4 monitoring report? I'm done with that conversation. All in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions. Great. Unanimously approved. Thank you for the thorough report. Thank you for the
Yes, the
conversation.
process question, because I'm
Yes.
trying to wrap my head around the training that we had and the conversation. So, I'm looking for the agenda. I just linked 4.1 and 3.4, and they're very broad policies around monitoring and delegation. In this kind of conversation, right, we're actually talking about a policy. So the references are just seem more like giving the authority for the actual 2.4 leadership.
So the question with the column that is policy is, why are we having this discussion? What is it in our policies that gives us the purview to have the conversation?
Okay.
And so those two policies.
They're the
Make it-
underpinning kind of saying, this is what we can do.
And there's also actually a few more that connect, but I tried to pick out the ones that really were, like you said, are fundamental.
Which is going to be maybe slightly different than when we look at like the capital plan piece. That's actually using a specific policy in terms of that specific item. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's more information, which is 2.8 to 2.6, which tries to, and informing the board so that they are able to engage with the community effectively and supporting the board and understanding what we're doing. Not to go on and on.
But there is a 4 that covers capital plan also.
There's
That requires us to have
probably, I don't remember. Right off the top of my head.
4.6.
We need to have a 5-year plan, but it could be capital.
Oh, yeah. All right. Good. Moving on. Title VI, update. So I don't know if anybody was paying attention to what was happening in the state over the last 2 days.
17 emails.
But a week ago Friday, in the field memo,
Yeah, it was a week ago, it was Black Friday.
yep, a week ago Friday, in the field memo, the Secretary of Education requested school districts to certify that they are following Title VI. And normally it is a part of the secretary's job to certify and to have a plan and to ensure that districts are following. And for some reason, that wasn't done normally this year, probably because the executive in DC requested something different than what is normally requested. By Tuesday, was it Monday?
Monday, yeah.
By Monday, the secretary agreed to certify for the state. And there were even more conversations about it today, and there probably will be more continued conversations. Do you want to talk more about that? Do people have specific questions about that? We had a lot of feedback from the district asking us not to get pulled in because it's not the school district's job, it's the secretary's job to do that. By even asking school districts to certify, it's almost a abdication of responsibility, some might say. And it could put school districts in jeopardy of federal funding just by asking. So there was a lot that wasn't done right.
Yeah, it was a very big
What do
surprise.
you want to say about it?
At first, it was a surprise to get that in their memos that we were required to do these certifications, essentially without any guidance, and it's brand new. We haven't had to do this before. And part of it was in the FAQs was talking about, that there could be no equity, diversity, and inclusion programs in their schools. So that really created a great deal of concern from our superintendent group, our association, and from a lot of community members. I got phone calls, emails, many, people that were really concerned that we were going to abandon the work that we've done around anti-racism and anti-bias, and making sure our schools are welcoming to everyone and as inclusive as possible. So that really created a big stir in the community, and so I felt like I needed to respond, which I did to staff and then to the community as well once we had more information. The pushback was pretty intense, I think, from a lot of organizations and community members, and it didn't take long for the secretary to say, we're not going to have each individual superintendent making this assurance. It really should be done at the state level. And so there, I believe, I haven't gotten to it yet, but I think that the Secretary of Ed put something out, later this afternoon with information around this, and the letter that they're going to send to the U.S. Department of Ed, which essentially says that they're certifying compliance with the 1964 Act, which is what we've done for a long, long time, and letting the Department of Ed know that in Vermont, and as far as we know at the federal level, diversity, equity, and inclusion is lawful, and that they are not going to discriminate against any students, and that they're only going to certify what is required by the law, and not what is required by the executive order. The U.S. Attorney General feels like that's an overreach of the executive order, and that that's where we're going to start at the state of Vermont. That's the information that Secretary of Ed is going to be sending the U.S. Department of Education. We did meet with her this afternoon, and what I'm sharing with you is what there was a representative from the Attorney General's office saying they're ready to defend Vermont's position. They're not going to budge on Vermont values, and that they feel like they're in a good position to do that. What I shared with you is an overview from the conversation I had with the Secretary of Ed. I think what was disappointing was that the Agency of Education didn't really take any responsibility for what was a really pretty big misstep. And they were given an opportunity to do that, and they just wouldn't. And what has happened is that has created a lot of issues for some superintendents and for the Secretary of Ed, where people are threatening it. So I think we want to be really clear about where the responsibility lies, and that there was a mistake and an error made, and that they're trying to resolve it. When I've had a chance to look at the letter, I will forward it to you. And I did get a quick preview, but they wouldn't share it with us. We could only see it on the screen. We had Emily Simmons was there too, who's a attorney for the AOE. And that is where we are at right now.
It's been removed from the weekly field memo also.
Yep. People were referring to that because the Secretary of Ed said we needed to certify this. And that really caused a great deal of concern.
So that's the update. Yes, Susan.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you, John, for keeping us updated, like literally in real time that Friday and that Monday. I really appreciated getting the emails and the updates, and just so we I really.
And that's part of policy governance, is keep supporting the board, keeping them informed, so that if you run into somebody in the community, you can say, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And, I've been sending, I can't put everything in my superintendent report, but when big things come, I send you information so that you're not surprised.
Do you send that to the principals as well?
Sometimes.
Yeah, like some of the things that the community might be chirping about?
Yep. Depending on what the issue is.
Yeah.
For example, we're switching our after school program.
Right.
Yeah.
And I only shared that with Tom, but not everybody, but that's important for you to know. Things like that. But more to come. I really, I'm only here for a couple of months, and I hope we continue to fight the good fight and stand up for the things that we believe in and not cave to pressure, because we love all our kids, right? And
I think if you want to be realistic, we have to respect this for at least the next 3 years. But we've been told to do what somebody else wants to do. Slightly different topic, but Harvard took a position today that said to the government, follow the law. That's it. And I think that's basically what we have to get to.
I agree. And this is in my superintendent report, but we slowly over the last 15 years, we've been getting less and less federal funding, chipping away at it. And so we have really intentionally prepared to, for the possibility that we might not get any federal funding. And we are in a position where we don't rely on a lot of federal funds. And, I had somebody reporter email me about summer school. And again, we have not, we didn't rely so heavily on the ESSER funds that we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to pull back. So our summer school program is going to be what it has been. And we fund that through our regular budget, through IDAB and special education, and some Title I funds that we're still going to get. Well, the information that I've gotten from the Agency of Education and other sources is that, and I did not know this, so, but maybe you did. They approve the education funds a year ahead of time. So for at least the next year, I think where it's going to be challenging is when you're budgeting next year. But the funds are there and they're allocated and they're saying we're going to get them, what we thought we were going to get for next year, for FY26. That makes sense?
FY27 is
That will be the big question.
Kevin.
I feel like as soon as I put my hand up, I interrupt somebody. Sorry.
There were no other hands.
Okay. But so like my reflection on this, and it's more from an observer, far away from Montpelier, but this is more. I think the concern is more about the issue than the process. But when I first heard that the state decided to delegate this decision down to the local districts, I asked myself why. Like, what was the reason behind that decision? And everything I read, that wasn't shared. But then I read that people got together, they talked about it with the Attorney General and all this, and then a different decision was made, and that was about unity, which makes sense because it's in our state motto or whatever. But to John's point, when it comes down to it, it is a local district decision to make changes into how we fund or comply with these regulations, right? Like a year from now, when we're talking about budgeting, the budget decisions reside at the local side. So I don't know. I was trying to rationalize it, and I guess, because I try to take both sides, I could kind of make sense of the process that was followed, but I would have expected, to have a discussion about where the decision should be made, like a policy governance mode, which is, should the state take this type of decision or should it be delegated down? It's maybe a quick decision for people other than me who like to debate things more than it should. But that was how I kind of reflected. And I think at the end of it, it was the right approach. But maybe in the future, when the feds ask us to do something similar, there could be more collaboration around how the decision is made before we decide who is going to make it.
I have a lot to say about that, but I will start with, it's our job to follow state law and federal law, and an executive order couldn't have changed the federal law in that way. And our state law requires us to follow DEI. So I think that our state, this is a state issue. This is not a district issue. If we're going to choose not to follow state law, we have other issues that we have to, gosh, I hope we don't ever, anyway, I think that would open a whole different conundrum. So I hear what you're saying, but I think there's some information missing from that process. So Ethan, you had something you wanted to add?
I think this is it's an executive branch at the federal level trying to agitate and disrupt organizations. This particular issue is one, sound like John, we've never been asked to certify before. And I appreciate the Attorney General, appreciate legislators, the public, who said, no, this is not a decision that we need to collectively unpack and decide upon. This is actually an overreach and an executive who is not interested in just looking at the next 3 years. He's looking at however long. And if we don't continue to push against these type of initiatives and asks, we're just going to get steamrolled, and it won't be about the students anymore. It will be about one particular person. So
I will say too that I think it's our governor's job to defend state law, and the governor has been fully silent on this, and that's incredibly disappointing.
yeah, the fact that the secretary passed it along.
Without having a discussion at the governmental level to say state law, federal law, executive order, how do we navigate this? Let's let the school districts decide like that.
You said an application of responsibility.
It is an application. Yeah. On a lot of levels. So.
And they won't be making any decision. They're not gonna get back to, U.S. Department of Ed won't get back or even take a look at it until April 24th. So don't expect any response soon. I guess that's kind of soon. And it, yeah. And it might be after that. That's the earliest. Well, more to come. But certainly galvanized a group of people, and I should say many people in our district, to say this is very important to us, which is good to hear. And that the priorities that the district laid out, a few years ago are, in general, very supported by the most constituents. Not everybody, because I did get some negative emails when I sent out the community information. Some pretty negative, but most were very, very positive.
I mean, foundationally, this is what we started this whole conversation about when Gretchen was here. If our students don't feel safe in our buildings and comfortable, then they can't learn. And we have to make our buildings places where all of our students feel safe and comfortable and open to learning. And that's all we're trying to do.
That's it. That's in a nutshell.
How do we create a sense of belonging for every single student?
And there would be no way for us to implement the Act 1 school quality standards with that kind of certificate. It's impossible. And those are things that we have to implement. So around ethnic studies and really diversifying our programming and curriculum. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there on the, what you were saying about we're following state and federal law, is there potential policy work we can do to codify, is there a potential policy that we want to codify what are our areas of responsibility and areas of non-responsibility? Is there something, or is that more implicit in our existence as a board?
Yeah, so the state board has rulemaking authority on just about every part of education in the state, and that is basically the same as state law. They've been given that ability, and we have to follow that. And then we have our policy governance policies. So if we're missing something, that's the question. What are we missing? And our ends policy should cover this, the direction that we want our district to be in. So it's worth it to read back through and say, does it still? Do we need to be meeting with the community again to make sure that our ends policy is up to date? We're in year 6 of that since we put that in place. I think we did it in 2018. So it's going to be our time to do it soon. I think that's where we would start with that. Are we ready to move on? And thank you for knowing right away, John, that wasn't something you should do. Capital facility project and planning updates.
Brett, could you share the slides on the screen? So this is information for folks and see if you have questions. I did share the capital plan with everyone. We have updated it. And these are our big systems that we need to prepare for. And we've done I think a good job of maintaining our buildings. And just walking around, and this building was built in 1969 and it's in good shape. Obviously there's things that are not contemporary about the building, but it's well maintained and it's efficient. The heating system and air exchange is good and meets federal and state standards. And it's, you know, the buildings are 50 plus years old.
Can we start with the other slide first?
Sure. Which one?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are things that we did this year. Walk-in freezer, Browns River, big project, huge, doesn't sound like it, big. New roof on a 93 wing, another very big project. We're getting the Smiley playground replaced, you know, over the April break. And we have, I think this is important. So if we have a lot of schools that have asbestos in the tiles and in some of the mastic. So in schools across Vermont do. This is very typical. But you have to have an asbestos plan that is certified, and we do for all our schools. And essentially, it's you don't mess around with it, you don't disturb it. And if you do, then you got to abate it. And what we're trying to do is that when we're replacing carpet and tile, we're abating it first, which is a very expensive process, but it's something that we need to do over time. So in Jericho, the 1950s wing, you know, there's asbestos in those rooms. So we've been clicking off abating rooms so there's no more asbestos. And we've been able to do that. Like Brewster Pierce has all been abated. And we have some other schools that have as well, but it's very costly and we do it over time, but we have a plan, so we're safe and we follow. Another big project was at Mount Mansfield, and some of you, we took a tour down there and you can see the new epoxy floor. So the tiles down there were original for the building, which is pretty remarkable in and of itself. So these probably will last another 75 years at least. But it was another big project needed, and it's something that we each year the community has resourced us with money so that we can maintain our buildings effectively. And these are the big projects that are in our capital section of our budget, which we have about $500,000 that are for these bigger things, so that we don't have to, you know, go out for a bond every 4 years or 30 years or 25 years or 10. And then we also replaced 21 unit heaters, which I know some of you saw. And some of those heaters were from 1967 and 70. They were still running, but it was hard to get parts, so we replaced a lot of those. This doesn't include regular maintenance. So some of the regular maintenance is we paint rooms and we replace carpet and tile, you know, annually as part of our regular budget. We inspect our sewers and we get our septic pump, you know, things like that. And then other, you know, replacing lights, and there's also money in the budget for regular maintenance to keep up on things. So we don't have to bond regularly. And the capital plan is something that we've been keeping up with, and we use that when we're budgeting. So what do we need? So, you know, the roof, we knew we needed the roof. So it's a really good instrument for us to say, here are our big systems, and here's the things when they need to be replaced. So those are our big projects this year. We go to and these are what we have shared with our community. We had it in our annual report. We shared this at multiple budget meetings, and shared this with our finance and facilities committee. Smiley had a boiler that was still working, unbelievable. I mean, a Whale McQueen that was 60 years old. And it still worked, but it's not efficient, gonna break down, but a real great piece of machinery, I'm telling you. It worked better than the 1993 one did, which is quite remarkable. But both of them needed to be replaced or we're gonna be in big trouble. So we're getting those replaced. We're going to do another section of the the high school, the epoxy of the floor, again, original tile. We probably might be saying, why is it cheaper? Because we don't have to seal this section of the floor. We had to seal it because it's a wetter in that side of the building. So we had to seal the concrete under the floor. We don't have to do that for every section of the building. That makes sense? And we are going to get our stormwater projects done this summer. So it looks like we're gonna have MMU, Richmond, and Camel's Hump, and it's not on here, but I just found out also Browns River. We'll have all those projects done this summer. And it's a 90-10 split. So we pay 10%, and the rest is funded through grants, federal and state funding. That money is not unlimited. So we were able to get in very early on, and I think Phil Graff, who's our facilities director, has been on top of that. We're maximizing this amount of money, which is going to be really important because these projects, some of them are like $250,000, $300,000. And we're in this building, there are these cans that are valves, and we're replacing all of them because they're old and they need to be replaced. And we're replacing them with more efficient and better zone valves.
Questions for John?
I have a question.
Sure.
I noticed that so many teachers cover the lights in their classrooms, and here we have some as well. Can you just talk about that?
Well, it's for some students really have a hard time with light.
Yeah.
And it's and particularly some neurodivergent students.
Yeah.
So it's really trying to make the rooms, accessible to and when students get headaches.
Yeah, I can understand their terrible lights, but I know it's got to be so expensive to replace them. But I see so many teachers with these little like kerchiefs and stuff pinned up, and I don't know. Just wondered if we had a point of view on it, or just sort of something all schools with this era live with.
That is true that it's, something that we need to deal with. And it's gotten a little bit better because the lights are better with
The bulbs.
So yes, they're better than they have been. But even for some students, even if you had, not fluorescent lights, they're very sensitive to it.
Fun little fact about that. There was a study Missouri State did, and the LEDs that are warm white produce the least effectiveness or affect the students least.
I didn't know that, but I'm going to check it out. And hopefully we're replacing them with those.
With the warm white LEDs.
Yes. We are doing that, replacing the bulbs with better bulbs.
I bet you want LED or they stay fluorescent, just the TAs.
We're trying LEDs. We're trying to go LED. Yep. Now we
This is my
can
world, so.
Yeah, now we are. But that's good to know because that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, thank you. So I have noticed in the past 2 years, we have spent a lot of money on HVAC. Is there any thought process into, indefinitely? Is there any thought process into growing the maintenance facility to be able to do all of our, or some or most of our HVAC repairs, like all the zone valve replacements in-house?
So we do some in-house, and actually Phil has that's what his background is in.
Yeah, that's so.
And so we do some, but we just don't have enough people right now to do it. So it would be, adding more people and trying to get the right people that can do it, the training folks. So there is a couple things we're doing. We have our maintenance team, which is really Phil and 2 other people.
Right. Very small, large.
Yeah. And we do have maintenance folks at schools, but that's something to consider if we can find the right, people. Dr. Colley probably remembers this. I mean, we've tried this a couple of times to try to, with mixed results. Do you know what I mean? And it all revolved around the people and getting the right people in the job.
Right. Yeah. So from my experience, the sweet spot is 18 to 20. getting those young people, but also getting the guys that are ready to retire that don't want to work 70 hours anymore to teach the 18 to 20s as they transition. And the 18 to 20s will go off and really hustle later, but they will get their feet wet and say, hey, this is a trade I'd like to do. And then, you know, they'll move on, but the high school kids never quit coming because we farm them.
Anyway, an excellent HVAC training program.
There might be one.
So we, it's only 2 people, but Phil is training our 2 people, and they're doing some HVAC certificate training.
Yeah.
And they do it. If we could do more and do it cost effectively, I think it would be a good idea.
We hire 4 students over the summer usually.
We chairs for waxing.
We get a lot out of that team. Oh my goodness.
But that's just one of the personnel issues. I mean, bus drivers has
Oh, yeah.
always been one of those problems. Let's get the retiree people doing it before they retire. Wait a minute. And so it's a continuous feed system.
And we have doubled the size because we only had 1. Now we have 2. But I think that's a good idea. We should try to do that.
On that, some of the more sporadic projects, is there collaboration to be done with other districts and the technical centers in the region, like having shared? I don't know if resources can be shared across.
Yeah, we've not been good at that. I'm not gonna lie to you, Kyle, that I think people are so enveloped in their own world that they just don't have the capacity to. But let me see, what are some things we've done? Not many. Not many cross district. But that's where I think this new bill might be able to help. It's really been difficult and we have reached out sometimes and said, hey, could we share one HR director? No, we have too much to do. We have tried, but we're not with a very good response.
2 questions. So the stormwater 80,000, that's our match, right? So the project is, we're saying 90-10, so it's 800,000.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And we're probably gonna have to find a little bit more money because of
Adding VRMS.
because we're adding Browns River, but we want to do it now because it's gonna cost tons. So that money will not be there. They've already said that.
I think, that's a great message for us to talk about, like $80,000 is getting us
Yeah.
$1 million.
$1 million worth of
Our budget. And I just also say, I know I had someone, say to me something about the boiler replacement at Smiley and, the investment in the infrastructure as a homeowner, it really is painful at times to be making these investments, whether it's a new roof or a new boiler. But the reality of a boiler crapping out in the middle of winter, paying double, you're paying overtime and you're closing building, just that level of investment, regardless of the age of the building, just to me makes a ton of sense and sort of fends off, I think, bigger expenses later on. So
Totally agree.
And this master list is awesome. I think that's been something you've been working on, having that as a reference tool. Do you keep all of the things that you've done? I'm thinking sort of this list. You've mentioned projects that are done. Are you taking stuff off the list?
We're trying just to update it, in 60 years, you're gonna need to do it again. We're trying to make it live.
That's wishful.
Projected year of replacement thing.
Metal roof, I was thinking.
Well, I was thinking the things that have been done, are the things that are being done taken off the list. They're staying on there and
The year installed or the condition changes and then updating the projected year of replacement. So
Yes, we are doing that. And we've gotten, a lot better at it, I think.
So looking at, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do, just regarding the master list. So the items that are marked as fair, are those things we can assume that we'll be paying to replace in the not too distant future, or?
Yeah, it's mostly, if you can tell, we have, but And I think we'll be able to do it in most of it in the regular budget. Like we have old air handling units that need to be replaced. They still work and we can get parts for them, but we really need to replace them. So, and they're not as efficient and they sometimes break down. So those are the things that are the next on the to-do list. And some of them I will say that, like there's air handling units on the roofs that sometimes we can fix for $1,000. So you wouldn't necessarily see it on this, but we have money in our budget to be able to fix those. Yep, those are the things that we're gonna click off the list.
So I'm looking at the Browns River page on our capitals plan spreadsheet. I can share it with you. And it's showing a number of things in 2023 and 2025 as roof that need to be done, but I didn't see them either on our done this year or on our getting done next year.
That'll be for the next round.
Okay.
But these are now when you see the projected year replacement, that's when their lifespan, but some of them are in better condition than others.
But when it says gym roof has been leaking, that makes me worried.
It has been.
Yeah.
And then he said that's one of the ones that needs to get replaced.
Okay. So when we make trade-offs in our budget and we say we're going to keep our budget really low, this is a decision that we're making when we do that.
Yeah, we have two.
We're saying we don't have the extra $300,000, and that I'm rounding on this list, to replace these roofs at Browns River because we have to keep our budget low for tax purposes.
Yep. And we try to pick off the things that are like most important and the things that just have to get done.
Yep.
And those are the things that are on, and safety stuff. And we take care of those. But yeah, those roofs, one is in better shape than the other one. You know, you have been able to fix the leaks. Those flat roofs, I'm just gonna tell you, they leak. They could be brand new and they leak. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But that is not something that Phil said like is imminent that we need to do it. And I meet monthly with Phil, and we talk about everything facilities. So I feel like we're trying to be proactive, and we do a lot of preventative maintenance.
This is more a spreadsheet dig thing. Would it be possible to have a tab that is all the projects with the school associates who can do it sorted by projected year of replacement or back or cost or status?
Ooh, what a spreadsheet geek. How exciting.
You got it. I don't want to say that I've been thinking about how to do it, but I have.
I say that with like big respect because I live with this spreadsheet.
Yeah, and Nicole's really fast on spreadsheets, so I mean, we can do whatever
It's easier to pull tedious, but easier.
Yeah, it might be really good for finance and facilities to have that as
a tab.
Yeah, as an something that we're looking at as we're putting budgets together. So we have that.
Sure.
Great. Last call. All right. Thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
Would you mind, Brett, putting the committee document, the board committee document up on that screen for us? Last call. Let me know if your name is in the wrong column and if your committee has already chosen a chair or not. Finance and facilities hasn't met since we so this is what I have. I had a couple of folks say that they wanted, my name is spelled right. How did that happen?
Not me.
I know. No, it's me. It's bizarre. I know that I had a couple of people say that they wanted to be on the HR committee as alternates. So if you still want to be,
No, I ain't seen you type real
time.
real time in this with my eyes.
Sorry. Anybody else have something that we need to change?
Can you just expand upon the responsibility of being an alternate?
Sure. Yeah, an alternate means it's great if you can keep up with what's going on in that committee. You don't have to attend all of the meetings. When you are there, you can be an active participant, but if there's a vote taken, you can't vote.
Okay.
So, and if we have 8 board members there, that becomes a board quorum. And so somebody will be asked to leave from the alternate list because it's about the committee meeting and not about the board meeting. But that hasn't happened. So sometimes we're struggling to get a quorum. So folks are good with this? Yeah.
I just, I don't know for me to be an alternate for a meeting that I'm just rarely ever able to make. And I can be there late, but
We're taking you off? Fine.
sorry.
Real time makes me happy. So is there anybody that would like to be an alternate on community engagement? It is good to have, 1 or 2, but. Okay. Great. I think we're done with that. Yeah.
Did we have a Spanish immersion committee or like exploratory something or other?
Yep. So that's not a board committee. That's a district committee. And there is a board member. Are you still on it? A board member on the committee, the same way we have board members on committees when we hire. But it is teachers, parents, board members, just other staff that work in this, in the Spanish immersion.
And Andrew was gonna have they've been meeting and I think they might have, he'll be at the next meeting because I'm not gonna be available and he's gonna offer an update.
I just wasn't sure if it was
Yeah, it's not a
It's an
committee of the
ad hoc
board,
committee.
yeah.
but it's also not a committee of the board. So it's
Right.
not
Are there, what are the other committees like that?
other
Yeah, board
school,
members are. Is anybody here on any other sort of like ad hoc committees?
ABAR, but I don't know if is that still needed? Ad hoc.
I wouldn't call it ad hoc, right?
Oh, no, but it's still meeting? Yeah. So maybe that should be listed on here.
Well, we have our district committee, but the board level committee.
Right, but as a board member, as the regular, the same way we have the health insurance,
Sure.
voting delegate and all of that, probably should, now that I've closed it, add that. Way better to do it in real time because
And they come up every now and then. It seems like there's one every year. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. It must be a different experience to be like one board member among mostly staff.
Committee. It is. I can speak to that from being on the wellness committee. Fall, where was it last year? I can't remember.
No, that's a good example of a wellness committee.
Yeah, and so that was the wellness policy from the state had to be
Oh,
updated,
got it.
and it was required to
Oh,
have a
right.
board member.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And so I really, I didn't give a lot of,
But I was glad you were on that because when we talked about it here, then you had a lot of insight. to
Yeah,
sort of share.
that's really, I think,
Yeah,
the biggest
that was
benefit.
useful. That was really useful. Good, thank you. Just curious, that's all.
I think because the Spanish immersion is ad hoc, we probably don't have to add it, but
Hopefully it's been done.
We just met our most recent meeting was last week, and I think we're going to be possibly sunsetting, although at least, we may meet again in the fall, but I think we're going to be stopping for now. We have bunch of recommendations that I think we're gonna talk about, as you mentioned at the next meeting.
Is this one on our website?
This is on our website.
Yeah, we might not want to put our like staff committees on there then, just as if it's different. Yeah, I just don't, I guess, I don't think it's that useful to put that on there, the A bar as well.
Now that we've added it, we want to take it off.
Yeah, sorry, it was my inquiry, but I don't know, I just like we don't have to tell our business right on our website like that, if we don't want to. Right.
We may have to because we're public board.
Yeah, well, but it's not a board committee,
It's not a board committee.
so I don't know that, but you're operating as a board member. Yeah,
Right.
okay, well,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Let me think on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was just thinking out loud, and now I'm thinking out loud a little more.
All right. Are we ready to move on? We silently think together. So, superintendent report.
I'll just take questions. I mean, I could offer a lot of information here to keep you informed. That's the purpose of it. There are specific questions that you have. I've talked about a lot of them already. And I can try to answer.
Any questions?
I'd love to go into detail about the legislative and AOE updates, but I'm not sure I'm really.
We have that again later. We can talk about it now, or we can talk about it when we get to the legislative update. But I'm happy to do it now.
Let's wait till legislative update.
Okay.
Then we'll get that on time.
I just thanks for all the communication about the school dates and the calendar. Just hear a lot from parents about that, and I thought you did a really nice job communicating all the pieces that go into it and why it is the way it is, and taking all the different opinions into account and being aligned with other folks in the state and making it easier for people who are both teachers and parents. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very much agree with the proactive communication of start and end dates helps for planning drastically.
Yes, I learned that.
It only took 15 years.
And I appreciate, a lot of times people say, hey, did you think of this? Or, no, I don't always think of everything. So you get better over time.
Hope we all do. And like that.
Well, it's just exciting that you have 4 different counties that are operating on the same calendar, right?
Yeah. It's pretty
A lot of
amazing.
people who are hopeful for a state calendar. But there'll be a partnership with 4 other counties, 3 other counties.
I hear lots of flack about the Wednesdays early stuff.
Yeah, and I really appreciate and respect that. And without that time, we are just, we're not going to get any of that work done. Some districts have it once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
And we used to do late starts.
Yeah.
And then people did not like those. And we did a survey, collected a lot of feedback, and, I made a decision to go to the early release.
And I understand why you do Wednesday, but it's just hard for parents. Middle of the week.
I really do recognize that.
I think that is like a major stress point for our society, right? Like right now, for better or for worse, people see school as their way to raise their children. And you're like, okay, I got my kid in school from 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock. I got that covered. I'll get the end here and then there. But this is like, people should not be complaining about the school taking time to do professional development. That's just my feeling about it, because we've got to do better to wrap ourselves around each other, be able to provide the support that maybe a working family might need.
Right.
To cover that.
And I think it's just the fact that it's a Wednesday, not a Friday, because it's easier to take off on Friday than it is a Wednesday when you work for corporate America or a national company. Like my office has no idea. Like, what do you mean Wednesday? You don't take off Wednesday. I work for an international company. They don't give Wednesday. Wednesday's the middle of the week.
Well, some people work for international companies and they're logging on at 9 o'clock at night.
Yep.
So it's, you know, it's a tricky situation, and I feel for me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can talk about, you know, modified school calendar and shortening the summer break.
Can I get a motion to approve?
It was a big issue for the
Oh,
company.
man. I was at those meetings. Sorry, folks.
I'm trying really hard to move us on.
Andrew,
Can I get a motion to approve the 3:10 minutes? So moved. Thank you. Second. Thank you, Elsie. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions. Thank you. I'm like, the word just disappeared. Okay, thank you. Approved unanimously. Legislative and VSBA updates. Do you have specific questions?
well, I was clarifying because, right, I heard on the radio that something passed today in the House. I think it's
Friday. Yep.
Friday, H
454. Yeah.
But there are all these other competing pieces out there. So are we operating under H 454?
So no, so H454 is the plan going forward that the House put together to continue to move, getting a handle on costs for schools and equity for student education across the state, and putting it together in a timeline in a fashion that will work without making more problems. It passed the House and it went to the Senate. The Senate can do whatever they want with it. There are lots and lots of different pieces in there, including putting a new subcommittee of the future of public education together to draw up to 3 different maps for the state to have new district lines. With new district lines, for example, if we were to go to new districts, it would be similar to us merging. So you would have to have new articles of incorporation, new contracts, new, I don't know, all kinds of other things. So like lots of different pieces. Oh, new voting districts, right? How many board members? All of that would have to all get figured out.
Or ID numbers.
Right.
Takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work to make that happen. And the governor's plan didn't take that into account. So this plan puts all of that on paper and says these things all have to happen. If you want to put that timeline up, that might be helpful.
I found this to be helpful.
The timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a really great way to think about it. And it actually now has a couple of different groups working over the summer on getting information together in a way that is usable, so that so January, the legislature can come back with, yeah, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do that. So that's what passed the House on Friday. It still has, there were a lot of people who passed it reluctantly. There were a lot of people who looked at it and said, this is the best thing we've seen, with taking into account all of the different pieces that have to happen and putting it together in a way that makes sense. So it's really, it's not fast enough for a lot of people, and it doesn't save as much money as people were hoping to save. And I think the issue is, in education, you're dealing with people doing all of the work. You can't mechanize it. It's really hard to save money when you can't mechanize it. But this does have some cost savings in it because it does set class size minimums across the state. So, our district is well above the class size minimums that are in here, but there are a lot of districts across the state that have fewer than 10 kid average in classes. And that's expensive because you have one teacher, the same way we have one teacher for 25 kids, they have one teacher for 8. So that's a disparity. And we have so many opportunities for our kids in this district, and there are places in the state where that's a high school of 100 kids. They don't have those kind of opportunities. They don't have the clubs and the sports and the AP classes and the honors classes, but we have so many students. We have the ability to offer that because, we have scale. We don't have, if you have 25 kids in your class, how much can you afford to offer all of those students?
That's another charge.
Well, but the way we pay for it is every single person pays, the money goes into a pot, and then the money gets dispersed. So this would also change that so that the budget is not voted on at the district, but schools get money per pupil. And that would be at the tech level and at the individual level.
And you could raise individual money.
If your district wanted to raise additional money, a percentage of that would go into a pot that would either go toward school construction or ensuring equity across the state, other things. That hasn't been fully fleshed out yet, but yeah. If your district wanted to raise additional funds, you wouldn't get to keep all of the additional funds.
One of my struggles recently has been the conversation about not moving fast enough. And people just saying, at least decide on the district map. My issue, and this is using the public forum, creating new districts doesn't save any money. And so if really this is about saving money, then the forced timeline of creating districts by the end of this session doesn't seem to be, there's no savings by doing that. And so from my perspective, I don't see any need to decide on a map before the end of the session.
And the con to that is scale saves money, right? But you don't get scale without having bigger districts. And scale would only save money if you're consolidating your footprint. And that takes time. And it takes really deliberate processes.
And in this conversation, we talked about class ratios, but we didn't talk about staff-student ratios, right? There's no language that says, like when I looked at our report and you add up the total FTEs and you divide it by the number of students, here are like 6 adults per student. And is that a number? I mean, I know where that stands for, like generally, but is that a number that's being discussed as much as class size, or their feeling is that class size will impact student staff ratio?
Yeah, the feeling is class size will impact student staff ratio, and the other numbers will have to come into play later as district size and all of that comes into play. I mean, it's really hard to, it has been tried in the past. It's really hard to count how many staff when some people contract and some people don't, and all of some are employees and some. So it's that's not an easy thing. And when you tell a district this is how much money you get for each student, that's also a cost savings, perhaps. I mean, for some districts, we have districts in the state who are spending, I think, $8,000 per student. So they would actually get enough money to educate their students if we picked a number that makes more sense, right? So, but their taxpayers don't want to pay for it. So,
Or on able to pay for it.
Or on their able to pay for it.
Is the number of 4,000 students per district, is that floating in one of these documents?
Yeah, it's in here as a goal when you're looking at drawing the lines. Yep. So something could change with our district.
And within one of those numbers, there's a minimum of 500 students per middle school.
I don't know if that was in the final. I don't remember a number for middle schools. It's possible, but it was discussed at one point. I don't remember if that's in the final or not. Yep. Yes, Kevin.
It's like go to the front of the line. What's the? I don't know. It's like as soon as I push it. For labor contracts, is there a reason why that's not called out as a key milestone?
I think it's part of the district, when the district, new district boundaries and voting words go into effect. So it would have to be part of that.
So
It would have to be the July 27. Although it could be, I think operational 2029. No, it would be operational. It would be July 2029.
interesting. And other question was, I think the original approach was that the new districts would need to be voted on. Is this bullet accurate in that the law would change, say this is the new district?
Yeah, I don't know about, I think voted on by your representatives, I think is the voted on. So the plan as this is stated is that the subcommittee would come up with the boundaries and the legislature would vote on the boundaries going into effect or not.
So do you know, does anybody know, every ED only one, what's different between like 146 where no matter what the state did, it was like it had to be voted on by the school districts versus now it's the legislature can do it?
I think the legislature decided that optional or choice on this one didn't work in Act 46. And if everyone in the state, based on the way they voted, based on the way, that they are responding, has said big change has to happen, then if big change has to happen, then it has to be the legislature making that decision.
Great.
So that's the message that was sent. And if that's, or that was heard maybe. Heather.
Let's go back to the 500 kids per middle school. How do they reconcile like some of our more rural towns where if you're requiring a certain amount of kids in a school and our more rural communities, getting that many kids in middle school might mean that kids are traveling hour 90 minutes to like, so I feel like in our more rural areas, like where I grew up, we had 16 kids in my class. Like there was no way the surrounding towns around us, we could fit 500 kids together in a middle school. Like how do they reconcile that with this like numbers they're hitting?
Yeah, so again, I don't remember that being in the final document, 500, but there is language that says that if you're not going to hit any of these minimums, then there has to be an exemption given, and it can be given for scarcity. It can't be given for non-scarcity, right? Like it has to be, so if you're in a mountain area where nobody can get there easily, and this is the only number of students that actually, live in this area, then that's a possibility. But when you have, 3 or 4 elementary schools within 10 miles of each other, then it doesn't make sense anymore. Yeah.
I guess, I think I know the answer to this, but is there any scenario that like there's no change or if there's broad consensus, it sounds like that this is happening. It's just a matter of the details. Is that
Senate could change everything?
But
Senate could
like
come
there's
back
no more like the status quo is not an option. It sounds like, right? Like there's absolutely
the Senate could say the status quo is an option.
Yeah. Okay. It seems to me like, is there any like criteria for looking at the functionality of individual districts? Like, their budgets passed, like, they're very highly well rated as the top district in their board gets along with each other. Just as an example.
We're asking the VSBA to come back or this group to say what's the right number of board members. So, for example, our district, 200 square miles, 15 board members, like that might come out as we shouldn't have this many board members. We, you know, could be.
Yeah, but
five,
there's no,
it could be
like,
seven,
they wouldn't
it could
just
be
leave us
nine.
alone. Like that's not really, you don't know. Anything would happen.
Anything.
Have you seen anywhere with this task force, who would be in this task force?
Yes, it's really clear in the
It's very
law,
explicit,
and I
yeah.
could probably pull it up. It's retired superintendents, retired business office managers, retired school board members.
All retired, guys. It's okay.
Me too.
The thought was to get people who understand the big picture, but aren't beholden to any particular area, because we want people, we want people who can look at it and say, this makes sense, this is the right thing, this, you know, this is what I would recommend if I had, you know, if I were king, whatever, queen.
That's fine.
But should we just be looking at retired?
Well, if you're,
Yeah,
That's,
like I think, no offense to John and Gail, but I think a little bit of issue
I'm
with
still
that.
with
Well,
what's the issue?
right, I get that there's probably a wealth of experience with folks who are retired, but the people that are doing the work right now, I think need to be given
it's the not.
some kind of consideration.
And they have a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's like,
Some of our memories
So
that are in it.
what we find in the State House is people who are in the positions come to advocate for their district. And many, if not all, aren't willing to separate that from what's best for the state. So, and over and over and over again, we find that people aren't willing to go on the record with what's best for the state. We're happy to do it off the record, but on the record, they have to advocate for their district. So that's been the experience, you know, for years, not just for.
So it'd be best if I retired from this school board so I could consider for the next one.
I didn't see retired school board member on this list.
Oh, yeah, it's right there. It's part of the
Yeah, I'm looking for the,
non-voting members.
Non-voting.
it's the, so
There's
this
voting
is,
and non-
then, so it's voting members of the Commission for the Future of Public Education that was created last year in the legislature, and this is adding non-voting members to that Commission of Public Education for the purpose of serving on this task force to draw the lines. Just to make it simple.
By the governor, please.
By the governor, by the Committee on Committees in the Senate, and by the,
Although the one member shall be appointed by the governor via retired or former superintendent.
and then also by the, yeah, so but it's a lot of. So as I get more information, I'll keep bringing it to you all. We're gonna let the Senate do their work. Then my guess is it'll go to a committee of conference. Just a guess. Because it's all very complicated. I think that the concept of getting told how much money you have to spend and having to figure out how you have to spend that would be different for our district, but I think it would also be a really good thing, and that's how most states do it. I think that the community is going to feel strange about not voting on a budget, but I also think that the word I'm looking for, the battle for how much money and who gets it, I think is not helpful, and it takes away from educating students. So I'm looking forward to that personally.
What's speculation on any session?
You mean when? I'm hoping for end of May. I hope could go later. We have been told by the governor that we will not leave without fixing education.
That was gonna be my question, what's the political pundit percent chance that something substantial passes? And it's not.
Well, if H 454 is considered substantial, it could pass.
Yeah, something of this.
Some are saying it's not substantial or not. I think this lays out a really clear timeline with like doable things in the time that's there. But I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, it could go to a conference committee. It could go to the governor. The governor could say not good enough and send it back. So we'll see. We don't have other committee reports on here. Any other committee? Anybody want to update us on anything?
It's resolution time.
Okay, so you want to give everyone a quick overview on resolutions? And
I sent an email.
Great, Tara sent an email.
On behalf of the VSBA.
Excellent email.
Yeah, we usually have it in our main agenda.
It's on their calendar.
So not our next meeting, but the following meeting after that.
I think we have it on the.
On the next one?
Yep.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So at our next agenda, if there's something statewide that you really want to see the VSBA advocate for our district, we will have time between our next board meeting and the following one to put a resolution together on that. We have done that in the past in our district, but not very often. Great.
Can you just confirm that we're not meeting on April 28th? Right, we don't have a second meeting this month, correct?
No, we haven't for,
We have two in a row. We have May 12th and May 19th. So there's 2 weeks in a row. May 19th starts at 6 with the golden apples.
So the next
Just
meeting
finished
is
working
May,
on
the next meeting is May 12th.
I guess I was surprised because I know usually it falls during the break week, but this year it's not falling during the break week. It was like, oh, we're still not meeting. And just because I think we have the DQS stuff too. Like we're gonna have to do the DQS self-evaluation. That's gonna be due, July 1, but we haven't received what that evaluator is.
Yet.
Yeah.
So we may be meeting June 15th
Or later.
or later when we get it to
Yeah.
figure that out. Great. Okay. I don't think, I have to look at John's thing. I've been, other business, and then we'll figure out if we need to have a meeting on the 28th.
Yeah.
Just to circle back to the conversation, I can't remember what meeting that was about the scholarship potential money that we might have. I was able to be in touch with someone from VSAC, who gave me like the information on how scholarships are created, and it seems like a pretty simple process if we're able to go that route. For a yearly scholarship, that would be a minimum of $1,000 scholarship that we could send each year and renew each year for as many years as we want to or don't want to. Or it could be an endowment, which would be $25,000 to start, and then that would start getting cycled through as like more of a long term, it looked like. And then the third option would be, and both of those would charge a 5% annual fee to VSAC, just put that out there. And then the third option is they also just put unrelated scholarships in the back of the book. So if that's where it wanted to go, it could go there. If it didn't want to be like VSAC. And then also they said, it can't be for one high school. So if it was to be put in VSAC as a VSAC administered, it would have to be able to be open to other high schools, at least multiple other. It couldn't just be MMU.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that was kind of, I noticed was a big thing. That was,
I mean, that totally makes sense if you're going for VSAC, but
yeah.
I don't think there's anything, this is something will be for another meeting, but I don't think there's anything to stop us. As far as I can tell from all my, and I are still trying to connect on this, but from all of my years of talking to the Jericho Town folks, I don't think there's anything to stop us from it being like a school district based scholarship fund, and then nobody charges us anything, and we just offer it. However, we solve whoever decides we want to do it. So
Might be another board committee with some principals on it or something like that.
yeah, can figure that all out, but okay. We're just working to 100% ascertain with the town that the money is accessible by the school district. Which I believe it is, but we'll get back. I'll get back to them.
The other side of that is that the town of Jericho could just administer it themselves.
Yep.
Yeah, they can.
If they did.
They want to, but that money has been sitting there for like 20 plus years and they just don't do anything with it. So I think we're kind of waiting for some guidance from us.
Other business.
Just, we do have an HR committee meeting on
Wednesday
Wednesday. That's not on this future meetings list. So I just wanted to make sure that did get warned so that we can have it.
Do you have the website or?
Make it website.
We're not usually on top of that, but since it's not on the agenda, I just. Check that out. The website must have pulled up.
It's the 16th, they have 300.
At 8 a.m. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other business. Okay, and I get a motion to adjourn.
So
Second,
second.
thank you. All in favor, a thumb, a quick.